Welcome to this presentation. It's about narcissist manipulation, and it's subtle, but it's actually psychological abuse. I am a survivor of psychological abuse. In my second marriage, I had two of them. In the second marriage, the first one was physical. I thought I learned my lesson, but as women do, there are certain characteristics in men that we look for, and sometimes we end up with another one that presents itself different, but is really the same one, you know, just a different costume. And so today we're going to talk about narcissistic manipulation and how it shows up in a relationship. I'm Wanda, the Executive Director of Art Transforms, and what we do is we use visual art to heal from trauma. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. So some people try to be tall by cutting off the heads of others. So I want you to just keep that in mind as we go through this presentation. Definition of narcissistic manipulation. So the people who do that type of manipulation, now it's not just he or she, women do it to men as well. So let's not forget that women are abusive in some relationships just as men are abusive in some relationships. So it goes both ways. So a narcissistic personality disorder involves a pattern of self-centered, think about this, self-centered, the world evolves around me, arrogant thinking, I know everything, I'm the smartest person in the room, I am superior to everybody around me, and their behavior dictates that. They show a lack of empathy and consideration for other people, for other people's feelings. They don't care. It's all about them. And an excessive need for admiration. They love to be admired, they love to be worshipped. This is what gives them their supply or that feeling of being important. And we're going to talk about the supply, which they need. Others often describe people with NPD as cocky, manipulative, selfish, patronizing, and demanding. And I'm sure we all know somebody like that has passed through our lives. And the thing is, when you see these signs, to be conscious of them, because they will lead to the same behavior. All right, so what happens to a person who's like that, who's cocky, who's manipulative, and who believes that they're superior to everyone and they're arrogant? Most of those people are very empty inside. So people with narcissism usually suffer with a form of early childhood attachment trauma, interpersonal abuse, abandonment, and rejection. So if you start to talk to them, and ladies, this is why it's important to get to know the people that you allow into your life, more than just a physical attraction, but to really talk to them and ask them questions, because people present themselves one way. And of course, we all know when you meet a person, you meet the representative. You don't actually meet the real person until you live with them. All right, so many of these people have suffered childhood trauma that comes in the form of abandonment and rejection. They didn't get a chance to bond with their caretaker or their mothers or fathers or their guardians. That bond was not connected. So here you have a little child that didn't have that bond connected, and that bond is very important because that gives them security. They feel loved, they feel safe, and without that, children grow up feeling unsafe and unloved. So at some point in early childhood, the narcissist was not properly attached to or was insufficiently loved. Because of this, they learned how to survive, so they kind of raise themselves, and they have a deficiency when it comes to emotional maturity. So because of this, they learn how to survive in relationships using a sort of barter system, rather than relying on normal human connection skills because these were not properly internalized in their psychic. So they didn't form these bonds at the stage of development that they should have. And so they found other ways to fill that gap, and that gap was filled with manipulation. So have you ever noticed, so think back or just think about it, that you notice your loved one demonstrates behaviors akin to a 3-year-old having a temper tantrum, and that's what happens. When they do not get their way, they have temper tantrums, and it comes out not in the form as an adult so we can talk about it and negotiate and let's solve this issue. It comes out in a temper tantrum because they are emotionally immature. They have, their emotions have not matured to the level of being able to negotiate adult relationships and talk about them. So they have a temper tantrum, they act out, or they become violent. They emotionally regress to an earlier stage of development, one which was not completed in the development phase of maturing. So as we mature, as we go through the lifespan, at different stages, we reach a level of emotional maturity from life experiences. Experiences that we have in life causes us to mature emotionally. In essence, a narcissist has not properly matured through each stage of early childhood development, resulting in stunted emotional growth. So they are emotionally immature, and this is why they have temper tantrums. And so once we become aware of this through observation, you have to pay attention. You have to watch the behaviors that manifest in the relationships where you feel that you're being psychologically abused, and how they show up. You have to watch the behaviors so that you'll be able to identify that this is happening. It's so subtle, a lot of times the victim doesn't even realize what's happening. All right, so people with early attachment trauma are developmentally delayed, particularly with respect to interpersonal relationships. They have difficulty with interpersonal relationships because they don't know how to bond with other people. They know how to manipulate them. They know how to get what they want, but to have a true interpersonal relationship, they struggle with that. And so because they struggle with it, because they don't know how to create a healthy relationship, then they become manipulative and manipulate the other person and control the other person. And then that's what helps them to feel secure in the relationship, because now they can control the other person. And the other person don't even realize this is what's happening, especially if you love the person. And so why do they do that? Well, we know that they have something missing in their childhood. They have that attachment and that bonding missing. They didn't get the love. They didn't get the attention. They get the affection. They didn't feel protected. So this is what's going on inside of them. And they carry that over to their adulthood. Now, what do? They create ways to get that kind of attention outside of themselves, and it's not genuine. So they will manipulate people. They will use people. They will present themselves as this great person, when in reality they can't keep that mask on. And that's when when the abuse starts, is when you find out who they really are. All right. So in psychoanalytic theory, narcissists supply, that's what they call when you worship them and you admire them and you let them know that, they are the center of your attention. They are what floats your boat, so they look for people who are going to worship them. Those are the people that they are attracted to. They're the women, since we are women here. Those are the women that they look for. And a lot of times, these women, when they are in a narcissistic relationship, they have either left a relationship that was abusive, whether it was physical, verbal, psychological. They have left a relationship that was abusive. And here comes this person, because women tell the guy that especially when they want everything about them, everything about their past relationships, in hopes that this new person, who seems like such a great person, won't do the same thing to them. Now, the catch to that is, if that new person is narcissistic, you have just gave them the ammunition that they need to control you, because now they know what to do to control you. And so again, ladies, we have to be careful what we talk about when we meet new people, and not give them information from past relationships that wasn't great, that where you were taken advantage of, because if they are narcissistic, they will use that against you. It will become their weapon. All right, so narcissistic supply is a pathological excessive need for attention, admiration, that does not consider the feelings of others. They don't care about how you feel. And the relationship is not about love. The relationship is about what you can do for them and how you make them feel. Even if it causes you pain, they don't care. And that is what the supply is all about. Worshiping them. And then when you don't worship them anymore, and they find that your attention is drifting away from them, they become violent, and they could just drop you like a hot potato and move on to the next victim. They don't consider, well, I don't want to hurt this person. This person has been there for me. They don't care. It's all about them. All right, so narcissistic supply is a form of payment given by others in order to be in a relationship with the narcissist. Narcissist people, majority of them are very intelligent. They're very charming. They are very successful, and some present themselves like they're successful and they're not. But they put on this air of being the greatest thing that happened to anybody that they bring into their life. They bring you in and they get rid of you too. They'll bring you in and you become emotionally attached to them. But remember, they are not emotionally attached to you. And this is why it's so easy for them to go from you to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. Because it's not about love, it's about what you got to offer them. All right, so when a young child is not sufficiently attuned to or attached with, emotionally soothed and protected, they develop self-protective survival skills. And some of these skills are not healthy. So they don't feel protected, so they protect themselves. These survival skills come in the form of emotional manipulation. And some of these things they have to get from other people. And so as they grow and they develop these manipulative skills, they just get better and better the older they get. So imagine they start as children, and children can be manipulative as well. And by the time they become adults, they are masters at manipulation. And so we have to be careful. We have to watch behaviors. We have to pay attention. We cannot get in relationships and be all in and, wow, this guy loves me, or this woman, and base it just on that. Be observative. Watch. Look at behaviors. If anything make you feel uncomfortable, it's worth taking a moment, step back, and taking a look at it. So how does this show up? So what are the forms of narcissistic supply? Attention, they love it. Compliments and praise, they love it. Accomplishments, they want to win all the time, and a lot of them are very successful. Or sports, you know, they play sports and they're very successful in playing sports, but they like to win. All right, feeling powerful, they like that. Running things and having power over the people in their lives. They control everything. So we got to remember that narcissistic manipulators are predators. They purposely target relationships with individuals who are really victims, who are prone to their initial charm. When the first time they meet you and they flash that charm on you and you go for it, they know they got you. And that's what they look for. All right? They look for women who are gullible to their manipulation, that don't know what's happening. And once they get over the first time, you set the stage. And women who are vulnerable to their exploitation. So they'll charm you, tell you a bunch of lies, you know, the things you want to hear. You're gullible. And then once you all in and you believe it and you starry eyes and this is the one, that is when they exploit you. They are predators. So this is just an example of how it shows up in a relationship. Narcissists practice master manipulation. They are masters at manipulation. They weaken and destabilize their victims to gain control. They weaken you. You know, they will use verbal abuse. They will lie, which is psychological abuse. And, you know, some of them are violent. But because they're manipulators, most of them won't hit, but they'll do other things. They will lie. They will cheat. They will verbally abuse you. They will say things to you, make you say, well, did that really happen or did I imagine it? Make you feel like you're crazy. They utilize positive and negative emotions or moments when in relationship to control the victim. So one day they're Dr. Jekyll and the next day they're Mr. Hyde. One day they love you and the next day they're arguing with you. So these are just some signs that you have to watch out for. Psychological abuse by a narcissist can be difficult to spot because it's so subtle, but you know something is wrong. And if you have a feeling inside that something just is not right, most of the times it's not right. And that is when you have to take a step back and observe what is going on. Sometimes you got to step outside of your own emotions, because a lot of times, even though all this is going on, you still love the person. You don't want to leave the person for whatever reason. But in the meantime, the woman is living a horror show because she's not happy. Life is passing her by. And a lot of times what men will do is they'll have one be abusive to her, and she stays with him. And when he decides he's done and he's ready to go, she's older and he go get a younger woman. That's what they do. Most of the time, men are not going to stay and say, well, I'm going to try to work it out and we marry, we're going to stay forever. That usually don't happen. And there's just too many cases. 50% of the people who get married get divorced. So in a relationship, in order to constantly fill their supply, many narcissists deliberately find or create scenarios where they can be regularly where they can regularly receive attention and the feeling of infallibility. At home or at work in ways large and small, the narcissist craves the constant stroking of their ego. They desperately depend on this supply to compensate for their inner emptiness and relieve their fragile self-esteem. So they don't feel good about themselves. And because they don't, and that's going back to the first quote, because they don't feel good about themselves, they manipulate others so that they feel good about them, but not good about themselves. And you will, the victim not good about themselves, and you will find victims in relationships that are codependent. They will make excuses because this is the hold the narcissists have on them. They will make excuses for, oh, he had a bad day. Well, he's not really that bad. You know, and we have to be conscious when we're doing that, covering up, because we don't want people to know. And we all have to reach out, as we know, and talk to somebody. And so what do? Tactics, rage. This is a fit of intense, furious anger. They just go from 0 to 100. They're in a rage. Comes out, and a lot of times it comes from nowhere, usually over nothing. You're in this heated argument, you're trying to figure out, well, what happened? How did we get here? All right, gaslighting. They lie about the past, make their victim doubt their memory. You might say, well, you know, I overheard this phone call, or I found this. No, you didn't. Or I saw you with this person. No, you didn't. That wasn't me. And so the person's like, what? Maybe I was wrong. And so that creates that confusion in their mind. So the victim will doubt their memory, their perception, their sanity, feel like you're going crazy. And that's psychological abuse, further causing doubt. She might even begin to question what she said a minute ago. Did I say that? The stare, where they just look at you like, you know what this means. Wait till we get home. The stare. This is an intense stare with no feeling behind it. It is designed to scare a victim into submission and is frequently mixed with the silent treatment. The worst thing to do is home is supposed to be where happiness and peace and love. But the worst thing is to be at home and going home and you're getting the silent treatment. That is a cold place to be. So that's how they punish you, by ignoring the person. Who wants to be ignored? All right. So the next one, and I'm going to move quickly because of time's sake, projection. They dump their issues onto the victim. You know, you're cheating when it's them cheating. You're lying when it's them lying. And they know this. This is not something that just happens. They know what they're doing because they have done it to other people. So they dump their issues onto the victim. They have tendencies of violence against women, and then they hit you and say, well, if you hadn't said this, I wouldn't hit you. No, you're the one with the problem, not me. Most of the time, I'm bringing up something that seems a little incorrect in the relationship. So now you're gonna hit me to shut me up. And then tell me, if you hadn't said that, then I wouldn't hit you, like you got control over what they do. Twisting. They will like flip the script, you know, change the conversation. You're having a conversation when they're confronted. They will twist it around to blame their victim of their actions. And they're masters of it. Just like they are masters of manipulation. A favorite manipulation tactic is for the narcissist to make their spouse fear the worst, such as I'll leave you, or I'll go with somebody else, or I'll just totally reject you. And depending on how much control that they have over the victim will be fearful of those things. And if none of those things work, they'll play the victim card. Because remember, they are manipulators. If you leave me, even though I've been abusive and verbally abused you, physically, psychologically, if you leave me, I'm gonna kill myself, which they're not gonna do. But they'll say that. And depending on, I'm using that example, depending on how attached emotionally the victim is to the abuser, they'll believe it. All right? So narcissist in a relationship is a form of addiction. And they go from one woman to the next woman, to the next woman, to the next woman. And if you had one and you left him or divorced him, trust me, if he doesn't get help, he's doing the same thing to the next one. All right? So narcissists are addicts. They are addicted to being significant. They got to be significant. They are addicted to attention. They are addicted to constantly being validated and acknowledged. Narcissists live for narcissistic supply. That is their drug. Think about an addict who will do anything to get their drug, even if it hurts the people around them. Narcissists are no different. What's worse is narcissists don't want to get better because they don't think anything is wrong with them. Their pathology and need to be the best will not allow them to see themselves as anything but the false self, which is perfect, amazing. They just want to continue to get their supply at any cost, no matter who it is, it hurts, be it a friend, family, stranger, and sadly, even if it is their own children. Knowledge is power, ladies. Recognizing narcissistic tactics is the first step to setting healthy boundaries against their manipulation and keeping yourself safe from psychological abuse. Always remember, love does not hurt. Your attention was appreciated. All right, so we back. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Great presentation.
Is there any questions?
Okay, Wanda, my question is this. What about someone who was brought up in a happy family and given a lot of love, where that, where the love wasn't missing, like you explained, and they still become narcissistic? Is that possible, or is it that
is possible, because nothing is absolute.
Okay.
But there is something that went on, because it's not normal behavior.
Right.
There's some disruption that went on somewhere in that individual's life that they become narcissistic.
Could it be something mental, like, like where something may not have gone wrong, but it's just some kind of chemical imbalance in them?
It's possible. It's possible.
Okay, that's what I thought.
None of them, nothing is absolute. And just like you'll have people that grow up and don't get, they're abandoned and they're rejected, they don't become narcissists. Not everybody.
Right.
Along those lines, I have a question. Do you think, like, say, for instance, because I've had experience with this, a narcissist who was given a very lot of love and attention from the time they were born, from their parents and both sets of grandparents. The thing that I know is that they were an only child. And could it be that they were so, like, spoiled and held as this wonderful, precious little child, that kind of bred their narcissistic behavior?
That's possible.
Yeah.
They want that from everybody. They expect everybody that they encounter to treat them the same way. That is possible,
Okay.
you know. But you also have to remember too that unless you know these people when they were growing up, a narcissist is going to make their childhood seem like the best thing, the best. They're not going to tell you the truth if it was bad.
Oh my God.
That's the flip side of it. You see, so it could be either
Oh.
or. Remember, their thing is to appear as the best thing, that everything is good around them. Now, for your scenario, they will tell you they had the best, they lived in the best house, the best neighborhood, went to the best school, you know.
Yes, that's exactly it. So it
So
could,
you don't know unless you was there while they was growing up. You don't know if it's true or not.
oh my God. So it could be that there were a lot of like
Something happened.
issues that were going on that they don't even talk about or they don't acknowledge, like they've buried.
Right. They
Okay.
suppress it into the subconscious mind, and then they create this new person. You know, it could be so painful they don't even want to remember it. And so they create a new person, and that's who they become.
Oh.
But a narcissist question there in the chat, can a narcissist person change his behaviors to turn to a better person? They have to want to do that. Not a single other person can help them. And that's what women get into. I'm gonna change him. No, you're gonna get changed. You're not gonna change.
Right. You're right.
You're gonna get changed.
You're gonna get changed.
And
Right.
it's gonna be painful. You see, unless they say, and remember, a narcissist don't think anything wrong with them.
Yeah.
And so, ladies, we got to get out the habit of meeting somebody and they got these issues and we're going to change them, because that's not going to happen unless they want to change. You spend a lot of time trying to help somebody get themselves together, and they'll develop other ways to do the same thing. But unless they say they want to change, they're not going to do it. And you're really wasting your time.
They probably even avoid that question of changing.
Yeah.
Avoid it.
What's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
Something wrong with you.
It's rude, yeah.
You
I
need
gotta-
to go and
yeah.
get therapy, not me. I'm fine.
I have a question, Wanda. You know, like when we hear about dominating and submissive people who have a sex life like that, like a man has to, they put
You
a
wanna
woman
be
on.
beat? Is that what
Yeah,
you
beat. Yeah. They beat them, or I've seen on the computer where they'll put a collar and a leash around the woman and take them outside naked, and that makes them happy. That makes them feel like, okay, you know, this is my, you know, that okay, that is a form of narcissistic too, right? I mean, I don't think that that's just something that to say, okay, well, this is how this person enjoys his sex life. Wouldn't that be a form of narcissistic to say, okay, I have to beat this person in order to make myself sexually happy?
Well, usually it's the person that's getting beaten that is soliciting the person that's doing the beating. It's not the person that's getting beaten wants it to happen like that. And so you have the dominatrix and, you know, these women, you know, when you look at it from male, female point, these women that do that and get paid for it. But it's the one being beaten that is, you know, you gotta, they're not got a gun on them, just let them beat them. They want
Okay.
that, you know, so that's really a kind of distorted sex, you know, distorted sexual
Right,
desire.
right, yeah, right. That they're both distorted then, I guess, at that point. But what I'm saying is, let's say that like they have a wife and she doesn't want to have sex that way, and the husband forces that on her. That's narcissistic as well, right? Because he's
No,
not
that's
sharing.
sexual abuse.
Okay, but that is a narcissist to perform that, right? You have to be.
I wouldn't say that it's narcissist. It's just a distorted sexual desire. You know,
Okay.
I know what you're thinking in terms of being in control of everything, and maybe some do, you know, but the
Because
person
at that
cheating,
point,
you
because
want that
what
to
I'm
happen to them.
right. But I'm saying, if let's say like they're performing sex, something, hurting a woman during sex, and she doesn't want that, yeah, that is sexual abuse. But in a sense too, they're not acknowledging the way you're feeling. So that would be a little form of narcissism in them as well, right? I mean, that would,
I mean, it could
yeah,
be,
yeah,
but it
yeah, yeah.
also
I
is a
mean, yeah,
rapist too.
yeah, yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean,
I would call that purge, because you know,
yeah.
since 1995, a husband can be arrested and charged of rape of his wife.
Right, right. Only since '95, since 19,
Right.
that I
Before
know of
then,
it.
they
Yeah,
just
right.
got away
It
with it.
wasn't considered rape at that point. Yeah. I guess, that like I guess it's a little bit like when you think about mental health issues, all kinds of mental health issues, depression, bipolar, they all kind of overlap a little each to each other anyway, right? I mean, they say that, there's a little bit of this, and it's not always cut and dry into one mental
Right. It's
category.
not.
Yeah,
It's not.
cut mental category. Yeah, okay. That was my question anyway. Okay.
Any other questions?
I thought narcissist sounds like they are in love with the beauty in themselves. Like, oh, I'm so beautiful. That's my image. Okay, it's wrong, I guess. But
It's
so
not wrong.
I thought,
They worship themselves.
right, but I thought they wanna seem to be beautiful and perfect, not like tantrum. So when you said like they tend to have a tantrum, and like that's ugly and embarrassing, and then it's nothing beautiful
It comes
about
out in
having that.
different ways. When you say a tantrum, they might not be doing like a 2-year-old jumping up and down and screaming. A
It's not.
tantrum could come out as physical abuse. A tantrum could be a heated argument. It could start with you stupid B and go.
And
That's a tantrum.
do you
In an
think?
adult.
Yeah. Do you think in that moment they think they are beautiful, they are perfect, they are powerful? So
And I think about
it's not
that.
ugly. They
About
don't think about it, right?
That's right. They're thinking about having it their way. Everything got to be their way.
Yeah, like you said, Wanda, when it gets to the point where they can no longer control you, then of course they're saying, okay, well, she's not seeing me glamorous anymore. So now that's not working anymore. Now I need to get physical with her. Or
That's
just,
right. And
like,
that's usually where it goes. They'll get physical. They'll be abusive. They will emotionally withdraw from you, and eventually they'll venture out. Even if they stay in the relationship, they will venture out and find another victim because they need that supply. So if you're the victim and these things is happening to you, you cannot give that same attention that you did when they charmed you. It's going to change.
Yeah.
And when they notice that, and you couldn't give it if you wanted to, because when you're hurt, you're hurt. And when you're hurt, it prevents you from doing things that you did at the beginning of the relationship. Because now you're dealing with the pain. The pain is going to always overshadow whatever it was like. You cook every day, you have sex every day, you worship, you praise. When he start hurting you, that's gonna change, and they gonna know it. And
It's never good enough for them.
Right.
You can tell them every day, oh, you're such a fine papi. Oh my God, but gorgeous. It's never enough. And then when you see right through them and you're not going to play their game anymore, that's when they start looking for
That's
the other
right.
supply.
That's right.
But you know what? If they don't lay a hand on you, but they make you physically ill inside, like for me, I was always sick to my stomach. My nerves were shattered. I cowered in bed at night so many times wondering what is going on? What is happening here? Before I did my research on narcissistic abuse, I said that's physical abuse. If you are feeling like out of control and confused and dazed, and your stomach is always in knots waiting for that shoe to drop, or is he going to be nice tonight, or is he going to be raging tonight?
Yeah.
And
To
that's
me,
true.
I always felt physically abused. Even though he didn't lay a hand on me, I felt physically abused.
Well, the stress from the psychological abuse affected you physically.
Hmm.
You see, stress will make you sick. And so when you were being mentally abused, trying to figure out what's going on, your body now is suffering. And so you get these illnesses. You'll get depressed, you'll feel anxious, you'll feel nervous all the time, you have upset stomach, you'll be walking on, like you say, all the things you said come out of that kind of abuse, and then problems. Or you might start overeating, and then you end up with diabetes or high cholesterol. You see, the stress will drive you crazy, and it turns into physical illnesses. So you have to be aware. The longer you stay, the sicker you get. And not to mention if you have children, because you hear women say, well, I'm going to stay for my kids, and the kids is watching this. I had a case where this woman was married to an affluent, her husband was affluent. She had 2 kids, and she stayed with the husband long enough for the kids to finish college because she wanted them to go to an Ivy League college. When they graduated, she told me, she used to come and just cry and cry and cry in my office. She said, when they graduated and I decided that I was going to leave because I had enough of his abuse, the kids say to her, you should have left a long time ago. You stayed. You let him abuse you. You took it. And she would cry because they held against her, even though they benefited from her. They held that against her, that she allowed this man to abuse her. So we have to think. You have to
That's
think.
what my sons told me. They said I left when they were both adults.
Mine
And
too.
they said they were tired of seeing us fight all the time. They were
Yes.
just so sick of it. Because they couldn't do anything. Because if they intervene, the father will say, oh, you're on her side, huh? Well, you're this, and that, just like your mother. So to avoid the father lashing out at them, they would just keep quiet, and then that made them feel like they weren't stepping up as men to defend their mother. So that played a psychological,
And that's gonna have, like you said, that has a psychological impact on them, on them as adults. And statistics show that males that see the abuse of their mothers, they're more likely to abuse women in their relationships, or they are more likely to be in a relationship where they are weak. We weaken, especially the sons that way, and the girls, what happens? The girls, they see, okay, this must be a part of being married, a part of relationships, so they accept it. They accept it, and they become weak in those kind. So when we stay, we do more damage. I see little kids in where I work now, the toddlers, they curse at their mothers. They call them the same names the father called them.
Yeah.
They hit the mother. So they think about the mother the same way that they have learned to think about the mother through the father.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they got a bond with him too. They got a bond with you, bond with him. And that's what drives the kids crazy, because they love both. And they don't want to take sides.
Mm.
But in a situation where you have an abusive person and a victim, they're, you know, can you imagine, you know, growing up in a household where the people are fighting and carrying on, especially when you're little, you can't do anything. You got two adults fighting and carrying on. There's nothing you can do but listen and feel sad. But in the meantime, this is how you relate in a relationship. It's what they are learning. And in some cases, nothing is absolute, but in some cases it manifests in their adult lives.
Yeah, but like you said, power is knowledge. No, knowledge is power. Sorry, knowledge is power. So the kids who are more aware of this situation and stuff, you know, I hope I'm giving them a little bit more like a tool. And just I don't know. It sounds just superficial, maybe, but I'm constantly in conversation with my kid, and he's acknowledging what's wrong with him, daddy, and what's wrong with mommy, and then you know he is thinking about this whole situation a lot, and I think that is giving him some tool to, you know, use in the future. That's my hope. And it's not like
good.
yeah, mm-hmm.
That's good. That is excellent.
Yeah,
because you have to let them know this
mm-hmm.
is not right.
Right, and then you know noticing the pattern and you know being aware of the situation is the first step. Even if you can't get out right away, I think that makes a ton of difference, and that
And that's
much
important to talk to them.
very important. So thank you for this kind of a session, you know, the awareness session. I always love it. You know, we in this day of age, we feel like we can Google anything. You know, I don't have to tune into the webinar or the seminar or whatever. But we don't Google until we become curious about something. And sometimes, like this narcissistic thing, we don't get to be curious because we don't know what to call it. Like we will see the situation as like a very odd, and you know, I don't like it, but you don't know the leveling, you don't know how to search for it because you can't quite pinpoint.
You don't have the words, you know.
Yeah, so this is great.
Right.
To put the word to it so we can learn from it and we can think about it, and we'll share the, you know, the stories. That's very beautiful, actually.
Please, I would like to ask again my question, Mike. Can a narcissistic person turn to a good person?
They gotta want to do it. You can't encourage them to do it. You can't suggest to them do it. You could point out that you got a problem, and they got to take it to the next level to get help. If they don't do that, they're not going to change, because you got to remember, they don't think anything is wrong with them. Something is wrong with you if you're telling them something's wrong with them. That's the hard part. Getting them to recognize they got a problem. And a lot of times, women get murdered trying to convince a narcissist that they got a problem. Because when you come at them like something's wrong with you, and now you are trying to change the way they feel about themselves, and they don't feel that there's something wrong, then now they got to destroy you. You got to go.
Yeah.
And the more you cling, the more they're going to push you away, because you don't buy into their belief that they are these perfect people. You're saying they are imperfect. So now you're the problem.
Yeah.
They got to want to change. They can with therapy, but they got to realize they got a problem first.
Is there any therapy for narcissistic people if they want really to change? Because people change only when they see the mistake and they're willing to change.
Right. They would have to go to a therapist or a psychiatrist themselves, and the psychiatrist or therapist would take it from there.
Thank you.
They would have to, they will, the therapist or the psychiatrist would talk to them and give them a diagnosis. Maybe they don't have narcissism. They may not be narcissism. All right. So
Yes.
the first step is to get therapy because something is not right. These behaviors is affecting the whole family. I'm feeling very uncomfortable and afraid at some levels, hurt. And I mean, how long do you want to live your life this way? Remember, the longer you stay, the older you get, and those years you will never get back. They are gone. And most of the time, we women spend the best years of our lives going through that because we don't realize what's happening. And the abuser has been so masterful to make us believe it's us because they're perfect when it's really them.
What happened when a narcissistic person become a president?
We already had that.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Lord.
We already had that.
Thank you, I understand.
Let's look at that.
God.
Then you know. Was that a trick question? That's a good way to end.
But you know, yeah. I got a question, Wanda.
Okay.
Okay, but sadly to say, isn't it that most men are narcissists in a sense? I know that there are some nice guys out there that will love you, and until the end of the marriage, they'll treat you well. But I kind of feel that majority of the men are narcissists. They're always looking to plug some other woman, even if they're a good husband, right? I mean, come on.
No, you are absolutely right, Carolyn. And when you look at the statistics, it shows that men are more likely to be narcissistic than women. But there are some women who are. But now you got to look at this too. You got to look at the male socialization process in this culture and many other cultures. Men are socialized to control things, to run things, that they are strong and that they are stoic, and they fight wars, they race cars. This is all part of the socialization process. That it's okay to have more than one woman. I mean, men are socialized to do those things. Then they get married and the wife is like, no, you can't have no other women. That's where the conflict come in, because they already been raised up from little boys that this is okay.
Yeah.
And that's why they have some cultures are polygamous, because the men, they gonna run around anyway. Whether, they gonna do that. That's what they do. And so you'll hear a lot of them say, well, I'm a man. But women can't do that now. Women, on the other hand, we socialize with baby dolls and teacups and little stoves and dishes to wash and change the baby diaper. That's how we socialize. Totally different than the boys.
Yeah.
The boys are given trucks and army men and action
soldiers, toy soldiers, the little toy soldiers. Yeah. I watched one time on television. I watched a documentary, and they showed all these little toddlers, boys and girls, playing together. The little girls were they seemed to resolve their problem more. The boys were aggressive. They pulled the toy right out of they showed more aggressive than little toddler girls.
There's a big difference.
Yeah, and I think I think just human nature, like let's go back to the caveman day, okay? Okay, because nobody really designed civilized people. But I think that, just as humanity, just as a creation, they already feel that they already have this, this superiority over us.
Right, because they are physiologically bigger.
Right, right. They're physically stronger than
They are
us. Right.
stronger,
Exactly.
they're
Right.
bigger,
Right.
and
And
to
of
talk about
course,
the cavemen, when you think about it, the women in the cave, they stayed with the children in the cave. The men
right,
went out and was hunting,
right.
and
And
they
there
came
was no
back. So
right, and
it's
there
called,
was
it's their
yeah,
nature.
yeah. And
It's
there
their
was no
nature to go out and
welfare or
run around.
anything. Right. A cave woman, there was no such thing as welfare. She had to depend on him bringing that moose home. That she couldn't just say, okay, well, I'll go
We
to
had to
welfare
depend on
or I'll
him.
get a
Exactly.
job. But I think that that's entwined into them naturally from the day that they're
Absolutely.
born. That's their genetic make, that is. So,
I believe that
I'm
too.
not saying that there's not once in a while there's a nice guy who will really be true and will care about your feelings. But most of them, I'm sorry to say, they want to stick their plug into every other woman, even when they're
Right,
married,
right.
you know.
They,
Right.
I
So,
heard,
mhm.
let me say this one thing, Yuko, on what she's saying. I guess he was in his 20s, early 20s, and his father was running around all around town, and the mother and him used to have arguments about his infidelity. And this son was talking to me, and he said to me, he said, and I confronted my father, why was he doing that? And you know what the father said to him? You got a girlfriend? And the son said, yes. He said, you only got one?
I know.
Get it? Now this is the father talking to the son. You only got one girlfriend? And the son said, yes. He said, well, one day you will understand.
Yeah.
So that's giving him the green light.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I would say the education is key. The men and women are different from a birth.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but we
Absolutely.
could try to minimize the damage, by
Once you
saying,
realize that.
yeah, look, boys, okay, you are clearly stronger physically, but that doesn't mean you can just hit everybody and kill them all. So,
Right,
there is
right.
a hope for it, I think, because like when I look at my son, who is a 17 and is strong and athletic and everything, he's very self-centered. So in that part, it's narcissistic, right? He cares about only him enjoying music, playing piano. That's all he cares about. He doesn't care about other people's feelings so much. So, but, but, hear me
Mm-hmm.
this. He is not manipulative at all. He's like not thinking about other people. So he doesn't try to reach out to manipulate other people into praising him or anything. So like you can be self-centered but very straightforward, pure love of passion for music or whatever that you are into, and not really manipulating other people. And that's what we have to accomplish by educating the boys from a younger age.
Yes.
Don't
Yeah.
put your influence or power over other people, girl or boys, doesn't matter.
Right,
You should have a boundary,
right.
hands to yourself, don't pull other people's hair, that kind of thing. And I think it's
But
doable if we are persistent, not
Mm-hmm.
but
maybe
you
100%.
go.
Mhm.
Yeah, but you go, that's hard to do, like you say, when the father is over there. You know what I'm saying? You're trying to
Right,
show
I
them
know.
to
Okay.
be, more calmer. And the fathers are showing them something different. Like I always make Rosalind laugh. One of the things that my husband used to say to me all the time, if we were getting into an argument, he would say, this was his favorite line. It wasn't Queen Kong up on the Empire State Building, it was King Kong up. So, in other words, what he was saying was that, okay, here's a strong beast. This figure of strength was not a woman. King Kong was not a woman up there. He was specifically saying it wasn't Queen Kong, it was King Kong up there.
That's right. The
So,
man
so
rule.
that automatically saying that, women are not. we're more superior. Like they're saying they're more superior.
It is hard.
And see,
It's
that's this culture. Because you know, women, if
right.
you go back to women's history, women could not vote until
Yeah.
1929.
20.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
29. And
Yes.
so prior to that,
Mhm.
the woman, if they got a divorce, the man got the children. Women didn't get the children. The women, they couldn't work outside of the house unless they
Right.
worked for their husbands. And so
Right.
this culture promotes that. It's still here.
Right.
Women are still fighting for equality,
Mhm.
equal pay,
Mhm.
equal status, being able to move up in their careers. We're still fighting. So all this filters down into our personal relationships
Right.
because they remember they have been socialized
Mhm.
that it's okay to control women. There's nothing wrong with that until the women started standing up and
Right.
pushing back. You know, we've made a little progress, but they still think that way.
Well, just the fact alone that there's never been a woman president.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
All right.
All right. So we have a lot to go. You know,
President. Oh,
Yeah,
as a
but
society.
we're making
Yeah.
progress.
Yeah. We
So
make progress.
just got to keep fighting.
Yeah. I wanna end in that kind of a positive note.
Yes,
Like
yes.
since we have a lot more to go, you know, we feel, you know, that's why we are doing this kind of Zoom, or you know, like we are having grassroots organization after organization, because you know we need to fight, we need to educate younger generation, we have to keep educating
Absolutely.
ourselves to save ourselves. Yeah, a lot of things. So thank you for coming in today. Phew. All right.
Wanda, you,
Thank you for the
Wanda, you did a
Thank you,
beautiful
Wanda.
presentation,
Yeah.
Wanda.
Thank
Great.
you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you,
Right
Kate.
on point.
Very
Thank
All right.
informative.
Yeah.
We all
Right.
one.
Thank you, Wanda. That was very wonderful, very informative. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
And yeah, thank you for coming. Bye bye. Thank you.